Hi guys, my name is Chris Lindsey. I'm a field CTO over at unsecure. Some of my background that kind of leads into this is very helpful. I wrote software for 35 years. Of the 35 years, 30 of it was writing healthcare software, a medication prescribing system. So security had to be absolutely paramount. I also ran a security program for a multi-billion-dollar company, built this program from the ground up, was very successful, had a lot of fun, very enjoyable. And so today, I'm going to bring you a fun talk that I love talking about because it's so relevant in today's world. So I always start off, I'm very interactive, so let me start off with this. How many of you were developers? Show of hands. Perfect. How many of you guys run security programs or work in security programs? Perfect. How many of you are students? There's always some. And then DevOps, DevSecOps, kind of in that realm. One. Okay. There's always one. So you guys are amazing because you guys are needed. All right, with that being said, here's my introduction. This talk I always talk about common prompts. And the reason why is because when you have better prompting strategies and you understand prompting, it makes everything go better. So we're gonna go over prompting strategy. We're gonna write a program, front end, back end. I do screenshots, video, the combination, because AI is so fast that it takes about right around an hour and 15, 20 minutes to actually do it. So I speed it up this way. We're gonna do a code review. We're gonna go a little bit deeper with security, final thoughts, Q&A, and we'll go from there. Who knows this quote and who knows the band? Go for it. Free Will by Rush. It is one of my favorite quotes because a lot of people put their head in the sand on things and they're like, hey, I don't know, we're still trying to decide. Well, you've already decided. You've already made a choice. By simply not deciding, you've still made a choice. That's why I love the quote. All right, so let's talk about why this matters. So some stats, we got to put this out there because, understanding where things are. So 76% of developers will use AI tools this year. This was written back in February. I'm actually modifying it. That number is really, well, it's last year, so 70%, but really the number's much higher, as you see down below, 97%. You think about all the tools and the things that you're using today, and those tools have AI embedded in them. Sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. Even your Chrome browser extensions will have AI, and you don't realize it. So there's a lot of stuff out there. 40% of employers actively encourage and promote AI tool adoption. I also ask this question every time I give this. How many of you work at a company that does not allow AI usage? Show of hands. Some, perfect. You're gonna love this next question. You can wink if you wish. How many of you at these companies take the source code or stuff, put it on a thumb drive, take it home so you can actually use AI, and then take it back to work, plug it in, and do it? Really, nobody? I'll be honest with you, this is probably about number 15 or so on this talk, maybe close to 20. There's always usually at least one in the room, so maybe we have a quiet one, but there's always usually somebody in the room that does the wink so they don't get called out.
You'd have one person make a suspicious face.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right, Google is anticipating 25% of all their code being generated. By the end of this talk, think about that number and how that all plays in, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Gartner is saying by 2027, 50% of code engineering will use AI. Honestly, and the reason why it's 5% in 2024 is because 2023, kind of late, almost around this time, is when OpenAI released their stuff publicly. And so when you look at the fact that we're only really right around 2 years in, it's amazing to see how far we've come. Last year, I spoke here on the promise of AI, talking about where we're headed. And from that talk, I think I'm right around 60 to 65%, maybe 70 of what I said on stage has come to pass. And even the company I work for has done some of this stuff that we talked about. It's amazing. All right, quick prompting, right? High level, clarity, context, examples, keywords, tone. Really think about it this way. When you're prompting, it's all about being specific, telling it what you want. Give it examples. If you're wanting to clone and do API endpoints, new API endpoint, if you say create a new API endpoint, it will do it. But if you say create an API endpoint like this, Or if it's a brand new application, create an API endpoint based on this uploaded document or whatever, it will give you better results. And so you could provide examples. Provide data. We're gonna see where I have it build this. It's a person entity, we're gonna talk to a database, but we didn't tell it what to do. So we'll see the field sizes and the things that it just randomly did. So that will be interesting. Chain of thought. I always ask this question, how many of you know what the chain of thought programming is with models? Show of hands if you know what the chain of thought is. If not, I'll describe it. Okay, no.
Got an idea of what it might be.
Perfect, all right. Chain of thought. You and I have a conversation. I say something, you say something. I say something, you say something. We're adding to our conversation. That's chain of thought. Being able to take and grow and continue. When you say something, it has it in context. It has it in its memory. It knows what it did. That is the chain of thought that I'm talking about. Split your complex tasks in the simpler ones. So don't feed it a 3-page essay asking to build this application, because it will be interesting what it comes out with, but if you give it small pieces, break it down into small parts, you get much better results. And I always change things on my talk, so I'll throw this out there. I've been writing software for 35 years. I wrote a game right around 2002 in VB6. It allowed people to actually communicate through IP address, and you can have multiplayer up to 6 people. I took Cursor about 2 weekends ago, and I converted it to Node.js. Took 45 minutes, a little bit of back and forth, and I have an amazing application that came forward just like the VB6. So when you're looking at what you can do with AI and Cursor and some of the tools, it's amazing. You'll have a better understanding how to do it better from this talk. Finally, understand the results may be wrong. So the models, as they progress, I do so much with models. I play with a lot of local models, small models, large models, 70 billion token models, 270 billion token models, which is very slow and choppy. I'm looking at getting some better hardware for that at home. But it's one of those things where when you're looking at the internet and you're looking at what's out there, the models do matter and they do help. One of the questions that I do on models, who is in the band Rush? If the model can tell me and it's a programming model, then either they were a fan of Rush or what other stuff is in there. So that's one of those temperature things that I do to see where it is. All right, so what I did is I came out and I said, what are the common things being asked from AI? Because really what I wanted to do was build this talk based on what people are actually doing, not what I would do. Because what I would do would definitely yield me better results. So here is the simple prompts. Number 1 is actually the foundation that we build from. Generate a basic C# .NET Core web app project with CRUD, create, read, update, delete, for those who don't know. For person entity, first name, last name, address, phone number, whatnot, date of birth. And do an entity framework core and SQL Server. You can see people are asking about data abstraction layers, controllers, routings, security, authentication, database integration. I will have the slides also available, so don't worry about snapping them. You can. Validation, error handling, testing, documentation. AI has done so much in this field to be able to point it to code and say, hey, build some documentation for me. Build me the API, shareable information, all that stuff. It does an amazing job. All right, so better prompting. So what I did is I said, all right, can I make my prompting better? Because the results over there, when you copy and paste it and try it, they suck. They don't do a really good job. So I added a little bit of extra stuff and said, hey, let's do a little bit better. And here's the difference. Generate a React front end. Now we're describing more detail on what we want. Write a React component that fetches data from a .NET Core web app. So really, we're giving it more detail, more information, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. The more detail, the more information, the better off we are. Authentication, security, error handling, state management, tables, deployment. So you can see what people are asking about. They're asking about just about everything that is within the realm of what is needed for programming. And think about this from security too. As we go through and we're looking at this, this talk is very balanced between security, because I ran a program and I know what you guys are up against, and development, and there's a lot of fun things that are back and forth. So how do you prompt is the difference between success and failure. ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot are the three main ones that I played with. However, I played with Gemini. I also played with multiple models using Ollama, LM Studio, and some of the other tools that you can run locally. I pulled a lot of different models from Hugging Face, and even since I wrote this, I've been still going back, running the prompts, and seeing if there's better stuff out there. And there are some better prompting LLMs that you can run locally that do a pretty good job. All right, so remember what I said, build a CRUD application, create, read, update, delete with a person entity. This is what ChatGPT gave me. It gave me a get, only the get, which is the read. I said, well, update the web page to include the fields, because there's a lot missing, from the person model and add a button that calls the back end. That's all I asked it. What did it give me? Changed my get, it's gone. Now I have my add, great. The chain of thought conversation. It knew that I had asked for it, it just didn't give it to me when I asked for it originally. So for those who are developers, you know the side-by-side code diffs, there you go. That's what it did. It did a lot of weird, beyond compare, you're right. So anyway, it's just one of those things you're looking at and you're like, I didn't ask for that, but it did it. So when you think about when you're doing things with your own software, what else is changing behind the scenes? Code reviews are critical, and code diffs to make sure that what else did it modify behind the scenes for you that will mess you up. All right, so we're going to use Claude 3.7. 4 came out. I played with 4. 4 actually was worse than 3.7. 4.5 just came out. I put some of the prompts in. It's better. It's almost on par with 3.7. So I will be updating this to the 4.5, but it'll be interesting because, again, the findings actually 3.7 are actually for Claude better than even the 4.5 for certain things. These are the prompts. So you'll have a copy of this slide deck. These are the actual prompts that I used for today. This is the backend. This is the API. We're going to say generate a basic C#.NET Core web app with CRUD for person entity using Entity Framework and SQL Server. We'll see what's missing. I'm going to share some of it here, but we'll see a lot of it as we go. Role-based access, security tokens, data validation, unit tests, and more. Then we're going to say, well, what security issues do you see? So we're going to use generative AI to try to give us a better visibility into what's missing and what we have. And it's going to say, hey, we are missing this and this. So it'll give us kind of like a Stack Overflow version, but I'll just be lazy and say, hey, just apply it. And it will. Then we'll do it one more time. And quite honestly, you could repeat this over and over because it fixes things and breaks things. Then finally, we'll just say, give us the files, and we'll move on to the front. All right, so as we look at this, we end up with .NET 7. .NET 7, when I built this, had been out for a long time. 8 and 9 were already out. Why didn't we get 9? Why did we get 7? I cannot speak to that. But the other thing, too, is you see the package reference, the dependencies that we're using. Those dependencies, some of those don't even work with .NET Core 7. So I thought that was interesting, the fact that it actually threw that out there. All right, so the person model, right? So we talked about what's a person entity. Here we go. First name, last name, email, phone number, address. And date of birth. The thing that's interesting is, remember I said, if you provided table structure or information, we didn't. It guessed 100, which I actually thought was fair. Now, when you're looking at this, it also made some of the fields required, which again, so when you're looking at it from a development standpoint, it's actually doing a pretty good job as a senior developer and possibly kind of an architect level. Your junior developers may or may not know some of this, so it really just kind of, that's where it's coming in. And we're going to hit the security stuff here pretty quick. All right, so that's what it looks like from the data transformation object. It's really what you expect to see. So the person controller, we're going to come in and we're going to take a look at it. And I just kind of wanted to show this kind of as a reference to what it built. Again, like I said, Claude did a pretty good job at actually building the code like a senior developer would, not a junior developer. Junior developer would probably have a lot of questions, a lot of back and forth, and a little bit different. But really, at the end of the day, what we receive here is really kind of more in line with somebody that's been coding for a while. The reason why this is important from a security standpoint is when you look at the code that's being generated from this, it's doing an okay job like a senior developer, so you have kind of a level set of what's coming through the door to you. So one of the questions I always ask is, and I have fun stories, I call them campfire stories, so I'll be throwing these in as I talk. But what it did is on app settings, it created a connection to the database using a connection string. Is there a better way of doing this, or is this actually an okay way to approach this?
Yes, there's a better way of doing it. How's that?
Okay, better way. What's a better way of doing this?
I might want to look at, it's hard to see from here, connection pooling or other sets of things that give me better performance or resiliency.
Okay. Okay. The other thing is when you're looking at it, maybe like an Azure Key Vault or Secrets Manager, by doing that, now you're not accidentally committing something into source code. So my fun campfire story. So when I ran my security program, I thought one day, how fun would it be to go to GitHub and ask it, hey, show me all the stuff with server equals or some of the connection string information. Almost all the teams within the company had stuff in the private repository. And I thought, okay, well, what if they fork it to public? What if there's a lot of what ifs. But, so I opened up my tools, SQL Server Manager, and opened it up and played around with it. Had the guys from the next row over, which is the team that I was picking on, said, man, you want to see this? I got questions about your database. And he came over and I had some of his stored procs up and I was just joking. But really that kind of drives home the fact that if it's in the system, people are going to go in and try it and see what they can do. So doing something like a secrets manager is actually a better option. So it gave us a good project structure, database context, data transformation object, people controller, program. I always throw this in at different levels, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in right now. How many lines of code do you think this application should be? A simple back-end, front-end database, really that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any guesses? How many? Few thousand? Okay. You want to have a stab at what was generated here?
500?
80. 80,000 lines. You'll see that on the front end. All right, so we didn't ask it for JWT authentication, so we're starting to now kind of edge more into the security realm as well as the developers. But we're looking at this. We said, hey, what security issues do you see with this? What's missing? And so it's going to give us a good list of what's missing. But we didn't ask about JWT authentication, so it's not wrong, but it did suggest it. It says, hey, I found it. The other thing too is I said, all right, well, go ahead and secure the code and do it. So this starts leading into the solid principles from a development standpoint. We have an auth service, JWT settings. We have a lot of stuff, the auth controller. So now it's starting to kind of grow, and you can kind of see where it's starting to come from. All right, so the auth. So it even added error handling here. So what I'm trying to point out is even when you ask it simple things, it's amazing at what Claude thought about and actually added. And there'll be even some more stuff that is kind of that surprise wow moment. All right, so Claude thought of a lot of things. Remember what I was saying about that connection string? Claude even came up with the Azure Key Vault. So the fact that it even thought about that, now you're starting to kind of lean more into the architecture level for Claude, and senior developer is kind of on that balance beam, but the reality is your junior developers wouldn't have this. But as we're about to see, the reason why junior developers should use this with caution is we're about to start seeing some of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and say, all right, fix it for me, and it came back and said, hey, I fully secured this for you. See, security guys, start looking at what it fixed and tell me if a developer handed that to you and said, hey, we did a release and here's what we did. It came back and it says authentication, authorization. We look over here as I scroll down and you see that it actually does IP address blocking, which I thought was neat. We never told it. Certificate management, health checks. Health checks are absolutely vital for applications to have, because when you do the maintenance weekend, you can call the health check and say, is it alive, is it kicking, and is it happy? Because if it is, then you know you're good and you're not getting up in the middle of the night to support it. So we saw the authentication, authorization, the input validation and cross-site scripting stuff, which is great. So again, security guys, you're like, this is great. Look at all the stuff that they did for us. There's good stuff. Error handling, comprehensive logging. The files that were updated, it gives us a really good background on what it has and what it's working with. And so it's, CORS policy and rate limiting. Rate limiting, by the way, what it decided to do was do pagination. I wouldn't call that rate limiting because you can still override it and do a denial of service attack on it and take it still down. So what it thinks and what's reality are usually kind of in the ballpark. So anyway, so it says, hey, your security implementation's robust. We're good because I asked it again, second time. What other things are you finding? And it goes, hey, there's still some input validation, some token security, some more authorization. So again, you look at AI and it's doing a pretty good job, as you can tell, at finding security things by itself without any security tools and fixing it. And here's the Stack Overflow view that I was talking about, where it's actually giving you the code. Hey, do this, do that, and sorry, it's a little small. Next time I work on this, I'll make it a little bit bigger. But you can kind of see, it has dedicated security middleware. So it's really laying things out in a nice, clean fashion from a development standpoint. And when the security team sees all the stuff that it did, you would be happy. I mean, you would be pleasantly surprised. Good, the developers are thinking through security, they're doing their stuff, and they're doing a great thing. Dependency vulnerabilities, great. It dealt with the CI/CD pipeline. So for DevOps, it's done a lot of little things, secure development processes. So it says by addressing these, you'll actually be more kind of enterprise level. Great. So I said, all right, I'm going to be lazy. Please secure this for me, because that's really key at the end of the day is, are we secure? Here's where the fun begins. All right. One of the things that I talk about is IP addresses with logs. People will disagree, but I will tell you that your API endpoints put the IP address in the logs, because when you can tell where it's coming from and what's going on behind the scenes, there's so much benefit there. And think about it from, the different, like the SOC, being able to provide that additional context and detail. Log every API, make sure that you log the inbound, the outbound. If it passed, failed, simply because now you can get some background and understanding what's happening behind the scenes, and it really does make a big difference. Now, cross-site scripting, back-end on the API. Do we do something with that, or should we just let that slide? What do you guys think? Do what? Anybody? Do we do cross-site script fixing on the back end?
You have to at least notify someone that this came.
You could. What it did for us is it actually encoded the information, which is the right answer. But on the back end, if we encode it and save it to the database encoded, now we've actually messed up the data that came in. If you have an API to an API, or when you're calling it from another system or whatnot, like a mobile, you're going to get the encoded version, which is nice at one point, but on the other point, the problem becomes when it's encoded, you're going to send gibberish down to another system that may not be looking or expecting that gibberish. So my recommendation, let it slide here, but on the front end is where you apply the encoding. All right, SQL injection, guys. Is this how you would approach SQL injection? Regular expressions. No. Yes. Command parameterization. All day, every day. Not this. So I'm going to throw it in here because I always put it in somewhere in the conversation. Let's talk about how we got here. All right. How many of you got, go ahead.
On the SSS issue earlier, when you mentioned to do it on the client side, but if you have multiple clients, you still need to make sure that you're doing it in every client.
Absolutely.
Decision, I think.
Right. The endpoint, the end client is where I would strongly suggest doing it.
And then you need to remember all of them.
You do. But then also you have to remember to unencode it too.
Sure.
So, and that's where...
Always right answers.
Yes, there's always. So, all right, so with AI. So this is how AI works. How many times did I have to use my thumb to actually say this is me so I can unlock my phone? How many times, for those who have done the unlock with your thumb, how many times did it take you to program it to who you are? Anybody?
It says 10 when you're doing it, but it could be more than that.
Okay, 10. I always say somewhere between 5 and 10. It could be more. But those thumbprints are gradients of who you are. The gradient. This is me, this is me, this is me, not you guys. So what I'm doing is I'm teaching it, I'm programming it, who I am. These are 10 versions of me. Now think about this. If I need to create something for, like, hey, I need to connect into a database, or for DevOps, I want to create some infrastructure as code, or I want to connect into an S3 bucket. It goes to the big data lake, and it uses mathematics to get there, and it says, all right, well, everything that's been trained on has been properly tagged, and it has all this stuff, but those are gradients of that request, that task that you're trying to accomplish. I want to connect to an S3 bucket. There could be 5,000 copies out there of different ways that people did it. Those are gradients. And so when you look at it, it gets tagged, is this correct? Is it incorrect? Depending on the source, where it comes from. Some source somewhere trained the model to say that that is the right way to do it. That's really ultimately where I'm trying to land. And you'll see that through your programming, through the system. You're like, oh, I want to do this. And you look at it. The problem with this is where I say for junior developers, go cautiously. The system told them, we just fixed SQL injection for you. The developer, if they don't know the proper way of doing things, they may think that this is right. And I will tell you, over the years of development, I have my developers do the same thing. The junior guys, when they come in, they're getting started, they're out of college, whatnot, this is how they think. And it's logical, but then you show them the right way, command parameterization, then you get better results. All right. So here we're going to say, all right, so go apply this for me. So it's implemented it. It gave us an enhanced authorization system, robust JWT authentication, two-factor auth. Again, we didn't ask, it provided, it did. So it's really kind of cool. And that's where those gradients come in. Wherever it randomly grabbed somebody's stuff, it brought in some better stuff. So it's just kind of hit and miss. And that's why every time you run it, you're going to get different results because of those gradients and the math, how it goes up and finds it. All right, so we have email service, we have implementation, strong password, 12 characters. That's good. Remember that number 12 when we get to the front end. And protection against timing attacks. When you look at the source code, there are no timing attack protection that I can imagine. So you can do a lot of things. So anyway, long story short, we're going to say provide us the files. We want the files so we can actually go on. So let's do the front end. Keep in mind that chain of thought programming that we talked about. So it already knows what it built on the back end. It has that context, that information, that detail. So we're going to say generate a front end based on application that ties into the back end that uses everything that you generated for me. So we'll see that the findings we're going to find, when we ask it what's wrong with this, we're going to see, you have token storage and public property, missing CSRF protection and others. And then we'll say, please protect the code like we did before because we're lazy and we're going to move on. So just like before, we end up with .NET 7. Okay, well, it's consistent. Again, we have dependencies. Anybody that knows anything about SCA or deserialization will know that Newtonsoft, especially this version, is a terrible idea. So even though we've been saying do this securely, we're not getting secure information and results out of it. Remember that 12 minimum character on the back end? We have 8 here. So we have a mismatch. What's QA going to tell us? Hey, I hit 8. It no longer shows me this message that a password's required, but it still fails. So there's a lot of things. This is why senior tech review, code review is absolutely vital when using AI, because it will do things like this and you'll just never have an idea unless you're actually looking at it. And if you miss it, QA should hopefully catch it. All right, so for those on the security side, pen testing, this is a buffet for you. You can pass in any ID. There's nothing in here for determining, am I on the right multi-tenant? So am I on the right tenant? Am I pulling the right information? Again, we didn't ask it about tenants. We didn't build that, so it really kind of didn't bring it forward. But again, keep in mind, if you have a developer just kind of doing these basic things, and that's why I used a common prompt that people are using because I wanted to show what the common prompts are bringing back from a code review. And you also can see the response. And so again, if you have Burp Suite, you can have fun with this all day long. All right, people details view. Now, it did a good job. It did do the encoding on the front end. Well, we did the encoding on the back end. We did encoding on the front end. Now we're going to have a problem with the display. So that's actually going to be broken, the way that it did it. And also, it did display name for. You would actually do encode.html and pass in what you want, because this is actually not secure. You can still bypass it. So the Microsoft framework, again, your developers are looking at this going, hey, it did all this good stuff for us. It put places in. It did all this stuff. From a security standpoint, the developer is handing this stuff to you. This is why, from a security standpoint, you really just need to make sure that how much code is actually AI generated. Therefore, you can be more up to date and on task for making sure that your scans and everything are complete. Do not allow anything to go to production without a scan. So we're going to come through, and this is where you can see where the 80,000 lines of code start really showing up here. So generate a front end based on the application. So what I just mentioned before is the first prompt is what we are getting. I kind of wanted to give you a heads up with what's coming out. So it created a MVC project, structure, setup, details, models, API services, authentication, and middleware, just like we saw in the back end, and that's great. But we're about to see some interesting stuff. As we're flipping through, it did a good job. I'm showing this simply because that way you can see it did catch the model. It did catch the stuff. It did put the stuff in as it should. But now we have an error model. We have a home index view. Now we have layout view, login portal view, login view, register view, two-factor. You would normally just put this as one. You would never go in and go and break it out to this extreme. And that's part of the reason. People delete views, site CSS. I mean, these are all classes. It's not even just a method. It's an entire class built to do this stuff. And the key features of the front-end application, it's secure. We know that's not true. People management interface, we have all that stuff. Good luck managing that if you need to fix something that goes across all of those. You're going to do the same fix 20 times. API integration, great. Hey, we have JWT, authentication views. We've got all this stuff, and includes a nice setup. Hey, here's how we want to set it up. Here's how we want to do it, which actually is great. It really does a good job at giving this to you and putting it in front of you. All right, so here, let's see. I don't recall. Oh, I was just kind of showing all the stuff off to the side, what it's got, the lockout and password. All right, from here, what I want to do is, all right, what security issues do you have? So we built it. Now we're going to say, for the first and only pass we're going to do, what security stuff did you find? Well, we have a CSP policy issue, token refresh mechanism, password complexity, account lockout. So, and again, we're going to get the Stack Overflow view of the fixes. And wait, is that a content delivery network? Are we leaving our application or our environment to go pull something? We'll actually dig into that in a minute. And we'll talk about the pros and cons. But yes, we're going to pull out from an external source. Well, I guess I'll ask, is that a good thing, bad thing? I mean, it is a content delivery network. What could go wrong, right? The answer is you don't want to do that. And the reason why is because then you can pull it down, test it, put it in the sandbox for 2 weeks, validate it, then put it to production after you've scanned it and you know that it's not malicious. Pulling it live, which unfortunately even containers, people are pulling containers live. And when you do that, you're going to find yourself pulling something potentially malicious that was malicious for 15 minutes. And you just happen to have that version just because at the time you pulled it. We added rate limiting for form submissions and all that. We look at the source code. No. All right. So I'm going to ask a question. How many of you folks have ever seen integrity listed on a link? It could be a class, it could be a library, a style sheet. Anybody know what integrity does?
Hash, SH, secure hash 384.
Yep.
Check.
It's a hash on the external file to ensure that it's not been tampered with. Do you think AI generated the right integrity for that?
Heck no.
I will tell you what, I will share with you in advance, I spent hours trying to debug this, and that was one of the things that I ran into. I actually knew integrity from back in the day when I was doing development, because we actually used it for some of the stuff, because it was a medication prescribing system, but it was an absolute pain in the ass to update anything. But you do want to update things frequently, so there's a lot of work involved, and depending on where it sits. So is it wise to reach out to an external source? Absolutely not. All right, here's how we build it. It's all in the slide deck. If you want to play with it, we'll go through that. But let's go ahead and do a code review, right? So what we found is, like Transformers, there's always more than meets the eye. Where the rubber hits the road, let's talk about this. Every GPT system created code for us. It created insecure code, but it did create code. After multiple attempts of asking GPT if it could find things and fix things, it does, and it's almost never ending. ChatGPT acted like a drunk coder because it did compile, I will give it that. It did compile, none of the other ones did, but this did compile, but it was missing pretty much the whole application. Claude is a senior developer who has not been trained on security. That's relevant. Copilot, it threw code at me. I have no idea what it threw at me, but it threw code at me. Some of it made sense, some of it did not, and it did not compile, and it was flooded with problems. And so really, when I built this, I said, I want to do it with the best possible system, and that's Claude. All right, there were 78 errors when I first loaded, and I resolved 22. It took a couple hours. Some of it was the integrity. Once I noticed the integrity in there, I started removing it and started making headway. However, there was still missing code. I had to actually say, generate more code for me so that I could actually run the application. And to be fair, I never got there. I spent 2 days trying to debug this thing, 80,000 lines of code, trying to go through, because you would fix it like you normally would, and then other things would fail behind it. So it was a good luck. So our high-level observations, security tools are found more issues. So I was looking at, well, okay, we use GPT, let's use security tools. To be fair, I used checkmarks, I used doc security, I used sneak, I did a lot of the different ones out there so that I could look at the results and see how did they all differ, because it would not be fair if I just said, yeah, we just used one. So anyway, but GPT is an excellent way to at least get some of the low-hanging fruit out of the way. So, however, you could upload code and ask for fixes. The problem is a lot of company policies do not upload code to the internet, especially to tenants, especially if it is a free tenant. If it is a company tenant, there's still some questions that go in there. The developers in the room, do we ever hard delete a row out of the database?
Hard to delete a row out of the database?
Yes.
No, dude.
And why?
You'll mark it as not necessary or something, but you won't delete it because there's audit reasons that who knows.
Right. No, you're spot on. We don't delete. The other thing, it creates a lot of fragmentation in the database. So that's really, at the end of the day, we don't hard delete, we flag things in. So all this code that people are uploading into the system, it's in a database somewhere. It's not getting deleted. That's really kind of the big point I'm trying to bring home on this. All right, so GPT can only take you so far. So I used our tool since I had a license, and I'm showing you what was missed. All right, JWT expiration, mass assignment vulnerability, log injections, path traversals, cross-site script forgery, and security serialization. We knew that when we saw that. Cross-site scripting, stack trace leakage, non-secured, path traversal again, and on and on. Oh, regular expression denial of service, we saw that, and a few more. So my question to you guys, if you're developers, security guys, if the developers handed you a list and said, look at all the really cool stuff I did for you security-wise, you're gonna look at it and go, hey, that's great, but I still need to run my scan. This is why you need to make sure that you run your scan, because look at all the stuff that was missed by it. All right, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to say, what does GPT have to, so it says, hold on, let me ask ChatGPT. All right, so it's funny because it actually caught what I had actually done. So I said, GPT can only take you so far, so how security tools, SAST, DAST, SCA are significantly better, using an enterprise tool at finding vulnerabilities than coding assistants like, again, I did ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot. It didn't know that I did those, so I thought it was funny how it actually randomly picked the main ones, which makes sense. AI coding assistants, are trained on a mixture of different things. Remember that, when we were talking about the gradients and how it comes in, there could be stuff right or wrong, and that plays a heavy role into why. And I'm not trying to push any security tools. I'm just saying you need something. If you're doing AI, you need something. Code-based coverage is better with enterprise tools, false positives and false negatives, regulatory and compliance. There's a lot. And there's really no magic bullet when it comes to development in AI, but human intervention is really the key for success. One thing I'd like to ask, would you guys be okay if I took a picture of you guys? I started this last year, and I just want a picture of the room, that's all. And then I'm gonna go into some Q&A stuff. All right, got it. Oh, I'll do the selfie. It's kind of funny. It's one of those things where I try to kind of do it when I do the talks, and it's kind of fun. Hey, there we go. All right, so just because you can doesn't mean you should. So with that being said, I want to do Q&A. I have about almost 15 minutes. I do post all the time on LinkedIn, so if you want to follow me, I do not post about Ox. I always post about cybersecurity. I talk about things that are important, what's going on in the industry. So feel free to connect. There's a lot of value that's out there. And really, I try to kind of ask questions like, one of my posts had 200,000 impressions in 1 week where I talked about the fact that companies are no longer hiring some of the junior developers. They're using AI, which you've kind of seen what we had here. And when they do that, the problem becomes they're going to run into problems with code quality, bloatware, and all this other stuff. And so I was asking the question, well, as the senior guys, the architect level people start retiring off, kind of like the COBOL problem, then who's going to be in the pipeline to fill behind? And so that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about is the fact that we still need to be hiring junior developers. We still need to feed that pipeline because those junior developers are going to come in and become your middle level and your senior guys eventually. And the problem becomes all those older guys are going to retire off and you're going to go, hey, we don't have anybody in the pipeline. We need a senior developer, but we only have a very small pool to pull from. So there's that. I also do a lot with LLMs, especially running stuff locally. And one of the goals that I'm trying to do personally right now is find a way to get a really good code quality ability to build and create all on-prem, to see what we can do on-prem and not reach out to the internet. So that way we start removing some of those barriers that we have for using AI. There's banks. I worked in healthcare. Healthcare, we don't want to push anything to the internet that we don't have to, which is kind of it's funny, we say we can't do that. We can't use your SAST object, but hold on a second. Let me go pull this down from GitHub. So, I mean, we're doing it, but the reality is that. So with that being said, any questions?
If you start off and tell it, use these best practices, use these cheat sheets, and use the latest version compared to NVT, how many times does it actually use that? And how many times do you have to keep telling it, no, you violated this convention, you violated this one?
So what we're talking about is guardrails, putting guardrails around things. You need to pull those down pretty much every time. Put it to a file and say, use this as the information from the file. And the reason why is because it will lose its context from time to time. If your chat history goes too far, it will summarize it and most likely lose it.
I had a question about GPTs.
Okay.
In general, I know that they're ran based on a random seed. Mm-hmm. Were you able to control the seed when you did your testing in order to ensure that your path was the same as you went through the process?
Right. No, I did not have the ability to really adjust the seed with my testing. So you're going to get
saying that you should get gobbledygook, which is what you got.
You may get better stuff or worse stuff. It's kind of the draw of the luck. One of the things that I looked at doing here is actually doing a sit down and do about a 4-hour session where we actually do this in together and see where we.
I can already guess that if I can't control how it's going to branch down to the
Right.
LLM, I'm probably going to get different information every time.
Every time it's going to be different. So what we're saying is every time you use.
About the chat history, like have you thought about copying and pasting the code that you just wrote into your prompts
Yes, you can. And
in hopes that it would just patch that one file with the improvements that you're asking for?
right.
How's that turned out for you?
Better. So when you can give it, so kind of like I said, yeah.
That it's turned out better. Have you found an even better way to do it then?
So we'll chat more because actually that's a good question. Is there a better way to do it? Yes. That is building files with context of what you're trying to do and get the information out there.
I have an argument with that. The argument is simple. People aren't smart enough to know everything before they start trying to make a system.
Right.
How can you create a prompt ahead of time?
So I'm trying not to go there, but I'll go there. There are some of the vendors out there now that have the ability to dynamically build all that with every query based on what it has, what it knows, and what it's working with. And a great example, I built an entire application from scratch and only had 4 lows and 1 information without using anything, just kind of like you were saying, just shooting from the hip. I had several highs, several mediums, lows, and informations. The other thing too is you can actually use AI to convert your older applications. Like I was describing earlier, I wrote the game and I did that, and that worked really well. So there are some benefits. It's just one of those things where you're right. If you're not familiar with AI, the prompting strategies, we do have a prompt library that I actually put together and I'm curating and I'm going to be making public soon. And the prompt library will give you a lot of common things that you're trying to do. And the goal is to try to kind of help solve that and give them a good starting point.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Questions? Anybody else?
Yeah, the question on prompts, Chris. So
Yes, question on prompts.
We had a great talk by Jim Manica, who is our veteran of the AppSec industry. But what actually he did, he created a prompt library, and he was claiming that if you prompt in a specific way, you do prompt engineering, you will get a really good result from AI. And so he was showing that some examples. And he built individual prompt library for every programming language, every framework, and also every different LLM model. So
Right.
Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT. So have you tried that? Have you tried any of the Jim's?
I haven't used any of
to
Jim's.
achieve
Yeah.
that level of security that apparently is possible just to apply prompt engineering skills.
So the prompt engineering does make a huge difference when you're prompting it properly. And to Jim's point, I didn't see his talk, but I know his work. And that is right on par with what you need to be thinking about and doing to get better results. You're still going to get random stuff out from those gradients, and you're still going to be fighting those kind of problems. But the reality is when you actually have that as a good starting point, you do get much better results. That's why this is that big bang, and I said don't just upload 3 pages of requirements. Build it out, do it, and ship it away, and you'll get much better results. So.
How did it handle the NuGet package?
So the NuGet package. So.
I was thinking that's probably probably 100% of the errors there almost.
Well, it's part of it because when you go to try to do an npm build or whatever, it's still. So it was actually utilizing some dependencies that didn't even exist.
Yeah, okay, and it's just like a false positive. I mean, I run into the NuGet packages. I mean, it's the most hard thing of building a .NET framework or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just I was just wondering how it handled that. So you said 1 compiled?
I never got it. Well, Claude compiled, but it was missing 3/4 of the program.
Oh, okay.
So.
Seems like a good scaffolding. And,
Right.
And do you have that what you did on your?
So everything I did here will be shared out